about to hear a Talking About Radio minicast. Your host, John Leslie, will spend the next few minutes opening an interesting file from his 5 decades of radio experiences.
Hi, everybody. In order to tell this story properly, I have to explain something about the radio business. Those of you in the audience who have been in broadcasting know the importance of staying on the air all the time. Because if you're off the air, the listeners, or in the case of television viewers, they will only last about 15 or 20 seconds or 30 seconds before they switch away to another station. And we can't have that happen because then once they're gone, it is typically about 7 days before they find their way back to your station, particularly in radio. So it's very important that we stay on the air all the time. And the deadly thing was dead air. You couldn't have dead air because you would lose listeners. Well, there was a joke in the industry, and I'm sure that this corny, unfunny joke was told at every radio station in the country whenever the station would go off the air for whatever reason, transmitter failure, power outage, whatever would happen, obviously, and the station is off the air, somebody would say, "You better get on the mic and announce that we're off the air." And nobody would laugh, but at least it would take a little of the edge off of the drama of being off the air. Well, this story is from when I was working for Stoner Broadcasting at WNBF AM 1290 in Binghamton, New York. I actually did announce that we were off the air. Here's what happened. The studios were located downtown on the 5th floor of a high-rise building in downtown Binghamton. Our transmitter was way up on top of a hill called Ingram Hill, so we were way away from the transmitter. This was in the middle of the winter, and we had a very bad ice storm one morning, and it was one of those mornings that was important because we not only had school closings that we had to announce, we had traffic information. There was all kind of information that had to be broadcast that morning. I was doing the morning show. It was early in the day. It was about 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. It was wintertime. It was still dark outside. The ice storm caused a power outage at the transmitter site up there on Ingram Hill. Our transmitter went off the air. We were off the air. I was downtown in the studio where we had power. We had all the lights. Everything was working properly in the studio, but we couldn't transmit because the transmitter up there on Ingram Hill was off the air. Well, one of the things that you have to understand is that when we're in a broadcast studio, we are required to have what's called an air monitor so that we can hear our own station and know that we are on the air. And that's how we knew we were off the air, because our air monitor went blank, at least from the standpoint of our radio signal from WNBF in Binghamton was gone. Well, we had no idea how long that was going to last. So we're standing around in the studio there trying to figure out what to do. And as I'm standing there listening on our air monitor, I could hear a radio station being picked up on our air monitor. It was not our station because we were off the air. It turns out I listened long enough, and it turned out I was listening to a Canadian radio station, CJBK in London, Ontario, who was on the same frequency, 1290, that we were. And because we were off the air, their signal was coming down across the Canadian border and into the Binghamton, New York metropolitan market, and I could hear it on our air monitor. And I thought to myself, if I can hear it, then everybody else who was tuned in their car or at home to our station on 1290, they are hearing the same signal from CJBK in London, Ontario. So I called information in those days that you get the number from information, and I got the number from for CJBK, their studio number, and I called and it rang and rang and rang and rang, and then finally the guy answered. The morning guy, who there was a team of two guys, and one of the guys answered, and I said, "Hey, hi, I'm John Leslie from WNBF in Binghamton, and we're off the air because of an ice storm, and you guys are coming in like gangbusters. Can I get on your air with you? Would you put me on your air and let me announce the school closings and let me announce that we are off the air and we'll be back on as soon as the power comes on?" Well, they were more than happy to help. And so I got on CJBK's radio station by phone. And I said, "Hello, everybody from back in Binghamton, New York. I'm speaking to you from Canada. And we're off the air. We've got an ice storm. You know about the ice storm, but you know our transmitter's off." And I read the school closings and I read all of the business closings and the delays for IBM or whoever else was affected by this ice storm. And so I I actually got on the air and announced we were off the air. And the guys up in Canada recorded this exchange that we had on the air. And then for the next couple of hours, about every 20 minutes, they would replay it. And so then at that point, I would stand in our studio back in Binghamton and they would replay it. And I would hear me coming back down from Ontario, Canada, announcing that we were off the air. And as far as anybody knows, and I can't tell you how many people have said this, that that was very likely the only time any radio announcer got on the air and announced that they were off the air.
This has been a Talking About Radio minicast with John Leslie. If you have an interesting story to share, record an MP3 file and send it to talkingaboutradio@yahoo.com.